There is something you have been able to do since you were a child, something so ordinary you probably do it without thinking. In the shower, in the kitchen, walking down the street. A simple sound produced by closed lips and a vibrating throat. Humming. You have never once considered what it does to your brain. Nobody ever told you to consider it. It seemed too simple, too ordinary, too unscientific. But inside a laboratory at a university in Sweden, researchers discovered something about humming that stopped them in their tracks. Something that could not be explained by the simplicity of the act. Something that connected a closed-mouth vibration to one of the most powerful therapeutic mechanisms in the entire human nervous system. And when you hear what they found, you will never dismiss humming as ordinary again. The question nobody ever asks is why. Think about the last time you hummed. Perhaps you do not even remember. That is how automatic it is. A tune drifting through your mind, your lips closing around it without instruction. The sound emerging before you decided to make it. Now here is what nobody ever told you about that moment. The instant your lips closed and your throat began vibrating, something happened inside your skull. Your sinuses responded. Your vagus nerve registered a signal it had been waiting for. Your brain shifted. Not dramatically. Not in a way you felt consciously, but measurably. In a direction that your body recognized immediately as beneficial. The vibration you created with nothing more than closed lips and a breath was doing something to your nervous system that no external drug or device can fully replicate. And it was doing it in real time, while you stood in the kitchen, while you walked to the car, while you thought you were simply passing time. Now here is where this gets genuinely remarkable. Stay with me. To understand what humming does to your brain, you need to understand one structure first, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. It runs from the brainstem all the way down through the neck, chest, and abdomen. Its name comes from the Latin word for wandering. It wanders through more of your body than any other nerve. It connects your brain directly to your heart, your lungs, your stomach, and your intestines. It is the primary communication highway between your brain and every major organ in your body, and it operates in two directions simultaneously. 80% of its fibers carry signals upward from the body to the brain. 20% carry signals downward from the brain to the body. Your organs are constantly reporting their status to your brain through this nerve. Your brain is constantly sending regulatory signals back down through it. Now here is what makes humming extraordinary. The muscles of your throat and the tissues of your larynx sit directly adjacent to the vagus nerve. When you hum, your throat vibrates. That vibration travels through the surrounding tissue. It reaches the vagus nerve directly. It stimulates it mechanically, through physical vibration, without surgery, without electricity, without medication. In 2002, researchers at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden published a study examining nasal airflow during humming compared to quiet breathing. The team was led by Dr. Jon Lundberg. They discovered that humming increased nasal airflow by a factor of 15 compared to quiet nasal breathing. 15 times the airflow, from a single closed-mouth vibration. Now why does nasal airflow matter for your brain? Because the nasal passages are the primary production site for nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a molecule that dilates blood vessels. It improves oxygen delivery to the brain, and humming was flooding the nasal passages and sinuses with it. 15 times the normal amount, in 2 minutes. But that is only the beginning of what this does inside your skull. What comes next is what the researchers did not expect. In the 1920s, a German physiologist named Otto Loewi made a discovery that would eventually win him the Nobel Prize. But the discovery did not come in a laboratory. It came in a dream. Loewi had been studying how nerves communicate with the organs they control. The prevailing theory at the time was purely electrical. Nerves sent electrical signals. Organs responded. Simple, mechanical. Nothing more complex than wiring. Loewi suspected there was something else involved. A chemical component. A substance released at the nerve ending that carried the signal to the organ. But he could not design an experiment to prove it. He went to sleep one night in 1921. He dreamed the experiment. He woke at 3 a.m. He wrote the design down on a piece of paper. He fell back asleep. The next morning he could not read his own handwriting. The dream was gone. The following night the dream returned. This time he drove to his laboratory at 3 a.m. and began the experiment immediately. He took 2 frog hearts still connected to their vagus nerves. He stimulated the vagus nerve of the first heart electrically. The heart slowed. Then he collected the fluid surrounding the first heart and transferred it to the second heart. Without any electrical stimulation whatsoever. The second heart also slowed. The fluid contained something. A chemical messenger released when the vagus nerve was stimulated. Loewi called it Vagostoff, vagus substance. We now call it acetylcholine. It was the first neurotransmitter ever identified. The discovery established that nerve communication is not purely electrical, it is chemical. The vagus nerve does not simply send electrical signals to the heart. It releases a chemical substance that carries the instruction. And that substance, acetylcholine, is released every time the vagus nerve is stimulated, including when it is stimulated by the vibration of your humming throat. Loewi received the Nobel Prize in Physiology in 1936. He had discovered the chemical language of the vagus nerve in a dream. At 3 a.m., in a laboratory he drove to in the middle of the night. And what he discovered changes what you think about the next 2 minutes of your life. Now let us go deeper into what is actually happening inside your brain during those 2 minutes of humming, because there are 2 more mechanisms operating simultaneously, and both of them connect to something you care about deeply: your stress, your anxiety, your ability to feel calm. The first mechanism involves your parasympathetic nervous system. Your nervous system has 2 primary operating modes. The sympathetic mode is your fight or flight state, heart rate elevated, cortisol rising, digestion paused, blood flowing to muscles. The parasympathetic mode is your rest and repair state, heart rate slowing, cortisol dropping, digestion resuming, blood flowing back to organs. The vagus nerve is the primary activator of your parasympathetic mode. When the vagus nerve is stimulated, it shifts your entire nervous system away from sympathetic dominance. The shift is measurable through something called heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the variation in time between each of your heartbeats. High heart rate variability indicates a nervous system that can shift flexibly between states. Low heart rate variability indicates a nervous system stuck in sympathetic overdrive. Chronic stress, anxiety, and cardiovascular disease are all associated with low heart rate variability. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Voice measured heart rate variability in participants before and after 5 minutes of humming. Heart rate variability increased significantly after humming. The nervous system had shifted measurably toward parasympathetic dominance in 5 minutes through vibration alone. But the second mechanism is the one that genuinely surprised researchers. It involves your sinuses, specifically the paranasal sinuses. The paranasal sinuses are the hollow cavities in the bones of your skull surrounding your nose. Most people know them only as the spaces that block up when you have a cold. But they have another function entirely, one that remained largely unknown until researchers began studying humming. Your sinuses are lined with tissue that produces nitric oxide continuously. During normal nasal breathing, that nitric oxide travels slowly into the nasal passage. During humming, the oscillating airflow created by the vibration dramatically increases the exchange of air between the sinuses and the nasal cavity. The Karolinska study found this exchange increased by a factor of 15. 15 times more nitric oxide entering the nasal passage and reaching the brain per breath. Nitric oxide does something specific inside the brain. It acts as a neurotransmitter. It modulates neural communication between brain cells. It has been shown to reduce neural inflammation. It improves cerebral blood flow by dilating the blood vessels supplying the brain. And in the sinuses, specifically nitric oxide has demonstrated antimicrobial properties. It inhibits the growth of bacteria and viruses within the sinus cavities. The humming is not simply vibrating your throat. It is flushing your sinuses with a molecule that improves blood flow to your brain, reduces neural inflammation, and simultaneously cleans the cavities in your skull. From 2 minutes of closed-mouth vibration. Now hold that thought, because what this means for your brain is something you need to hear directly. Here is what is actually happening inside your skull during those 2 minutes. The moment your lips close and your throat begins to vibrate, your vagus nerve receives a direct mechanical stimulus. It releases acetylcholine. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates. Your heart rate begins to slow within the first 30 seconds. Your cortisol level begins dropping. Your blood pressure follows. Simultaneously, the oscillating airflow into your nasal cavity is pulling nitric oxide from your sinus cavities at 15 times the rate of normal breathing. That nitric oxide is entering your bloodstream through your nasal mucosa. Your cerebral blood vessels are dilating in response. More oxygenated blood is reaching response. Your brain per minute than was reaching it 60 seconds ago. Your neural inflammation is reducing. Your brain is shifting from a state of sympathetic alert toward a state of genuine calm. Not the artificial calm of sedation. Not the temporary distraction of entertainment. A real measurable neurological shift, driven by vibration, driven by nothing more than closed lips and a breath. And here is the detail I want you to sit with. Your body knew how to do this before you were born. Humming is one of the oldest self-regulatory behaviors in human neurology. Infants hum. Every culture in human history has incorporated sustained vocal toning into its healing practices. Not because of tradition, because the nervous system responded, every time, measurably, predictably. And your nervous system will respond the same way tonight, if you give it 2 minutes. The application here is remarkably simple. 2 minutes. That is the entire intervention. When you feel the first physical signs of stress, the tight chest, the shallow breath, the racing thoughts, close your lips, breathe in through your nose, and hum on the exhale. Any pitch, any tune, any sustained closed-mouth vibration. Do it for 2 minutes. The vagus nerve does not require a specific frequency. It requires the vibration. The stimulation begins immediately. The parasympathetic shift begins within 30 seconds. Heart rate variability begins improving within the first minute. The nitric oxide release is continuous from the moment your lips close. If you suffer from anxiety, this is not a replacement for clinical treatment, but it is a tool that operates through a genuine neurological mechanism. Not placebo, not breathing exercise alone. Vagal stimulation through mechanical vibration. For people managing high blood pressure, humming before sleep has been studied as a method of lowering nocturnal heart rate. For people experiencing chronic sinus congestion, the increased sinus ventilation during humming has demonstrated measurable improvements in sinus drainage. For people waking at 3 a.m. with a mind that will not quiet and hum before you get out of bed, 2 minutes, lips closed, sustained vibration. Your vagus nerve will do the rest. It has always known exactly what to do with that signal. Otto Loewi dreamed the experiment that would win him the Nobel Prize. He woke at 3 a.m. He drove to his laboratory in the dark. He proved that the vagus nerve communicates through chemistry, through a substance released by vibration and stimulation, through a signal the body has been sending and receiving since long before anyone had the language to describe it. What he discovered in those frog hearts in 1921 is still operating inside your body right now. Your vagus nerve is listening. It has been listening your entire life. Every time you hummed absently in a quiet room, every time you made that sound in the back of your throat without deciding to, your nervous system was responding. It was shifting. It was doing something measurable, with that vibration that no instrument in 1921 could have detected. The instruments exist now, the research is there, the mechanism is understood. All that remains is the decision to use it deliberately. 2 minutes. That is all your nervous system has ever needed from you. Close your lips tonight and give it what it has always been waiting for.